Welcome back to another episode of the Spirituality Simplified YouTube channel. I am your host, samkabert, and this is a special series of 6 videos where this is episode number 4, having to do with my new book, Overcome the Overwhelm. Now, these 6 steps are based on the breath process, and breath is an acronym, and each of the letters has its own step. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, then I would just say hit pause on this one, go back and watch the first video first, because it's most important that you watch these in order. And each one of these videos has a corresponding QR code that many of you are watching this from the book and you scan the QR code. So thank you for being here. Again, if it's your first video that you're watching in the series, please just go back and watch the other ones first, because it's just going to make a little bit more sense whether or not you have the book. So with that out of the way, thank you again so much for being here. The Spirituality Simplified YouTube channel is where I host all my different various breathwork, meditations, visualizations, and mindfulness content around spirituality and really mental health, so that we can practice soul-life balance and feel more clear, at ease, and ultimately at inner peace. So with that, let's get into step number 4. The A in the breath process is accept to surrender. Where we left off at in the last video was the 3rd step, energy to reveal. Now, steps 3 and 4 are what I like to call phase 2 of this process. And phase 2 is all about feeling. So in the last video and the last step, we were getting really curious about these emotions, these energies that are in motion within the body, and asking ourselves, what is this energy revealing to me? Now, I like to say this is where people tend to get stuck. And I know this because this is where I used to get stuck and where I see a lot of my clients get stuck as well. It's in the asking of what is the energy revealing to me? Because when we ask that question, most often we're like, no, I don't want to see that. No, I'm going to reject that. But these first 4 steps are really what Carl Jung would call shadow work. It's going into the depths of our psyche to illuminate the different parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily have access to or even want to see. Now, your shadow or shadow work isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just bringing conscious awareness to the subconscious. And what I like to do to help to surrender so that we can get this lesson of the energy is to look at the practice of internal family systems, or also known as IFS for short, or what I like to call it and other people refer to it as well, parts work. Internal family system, or simply parts work, was created by a man named Richard Schwartz, and I believe it was the 1980s. He's a psychotherapist, and many psychotherapists and other therapists will utilize this framework. I am not certified in this, to be clear. It is something I've worked with my own therapist on, and I've studied, and I'm very clear on what it's about. And I kind of teach it in a little bit of a different way that tends to resonate with me and a lot of people I work with more so than the traditional way. So I want to say that as well. The basic idea is this. The author, Michael Singer, wrote a famous book called Untethered Soul. And the way he writes in that book is really incredible, because he talks about the roommate in your mind. If you haven't read that book, I highly recommend reading it. But the point is, like, I remember as a kid, there were these shirts that said, like, I hear voices in my head. And it was like, oh, if you wear that shirt, you're weird and different because you hear voices in your head. But the truth is, like, whether you want to call them voices or thoughts, it can kind of get into semantics. I'm just going to say thoughts. And if I say voices, know that I mean thoughts. We all have these different thoughts that we hear in our mind. And as Michael Singer talks about in his book, Untethered Soul, he talks about having that roommate in your mind. Well, what I love about parts work is it's saying essentially, like, hey, you don't just have that one roommate in your mind, you have a whole host of roommates in your mind. And these different thought forms, literally, it's called parts work. They make up the totality of your psyche. So what I talked about in the book is getting to know your parts and even like giving them names. In the book, you'll see different journaling prompts to help you to discover and get to know your parts. For example, one of my parts is named Tommy No Hemming. And when I was a little kid, I don't remember this, but my parents have told me throughout my life growing growing up, I used to essentially throw temper tantrums, and like they would try to get me to swim like over summer at like a pool or something like that, obviously. And I would say Hami no himming because I couldn't pronounce the S to say Sammy no swimming. So I'd say Hami no himming, Hami no himming. And now when I have a part of myself that comes up that is just like defiant and just like no, and it's like that sort of energy, I'm able to be like, oh, hey, Hami, because I gave that part a name of something that resonates with me. And now when that part starts to come through in my mind, I'm able to see it and listen to it and be with it and let it pass through, as opposed to not having known the IFS or parts work framework. That part would take control and then I would succumb to it. And then I would just be in that more dense, negative, and defiant frequency, which wasn't for my highest and best good. So that is a real life example of parts work. And the reason why I'm teaching you this is because this is the fourth step of the breath process, accept to surrender. And typically when we are in that resistance from step 3 of like, what's the energy revealing to you? The reason why we're resistant is because it thought form or a part of ourself will come through, and in parts work, they will call it either a firefighter, a protector, or something like that. And literally like the firefighter is there to put out fires, or the protector thinks is doing the right job to protect you from seeing this thing. So now what we're going to do in this exercise is a short little visualization to introduce you to just one of your parts. And you can replay this video a couple times to get to know more of your thought forms, or you could do this on your own, or even go to the journaling prompt. And the idea is anytime that you're working with the 6-step breath process, or just in your life in general, where you start to notice the thought form starting to take control, since you now know that part, you can have a conversation with it. And you'll notice as you hear out and you listen to this part, it starts to soften and it drifts away. So with that, we're going to dive into the visualization. Once again, just like the rest of the videos, if you're driving or doing anything at all where you're not fully present and you can't sit down, just hit pause and come back to us, because it's really important that you're able to just partake in this visualization. So with that, let's all go ahead and find a comfortable seat, closing down the eyes, feeling your feet on the floor. Everything we've been doing so far in these videos of just grounding and settling in, noticing the weight of your feet on the floor, feeling supported by Mother Earth, straightening the spine, letting your palms rest on your lap, and through the nose, inhaling all the way up, sipping in a bit more at the top. Through the mouth, go ahead and sigh it out, let it go. Biggest inhale you can take. Really expand that belly and bring that breath all the way up to the chest. Sip in a bit more air at the top. Hold. Sigh it out. Another like that. Big inhale all the way up. Sip in a bit more at the top. Sip in a bit more. Swallow, roll back the eyes as if you were looking at that space between your eyebrows, and just hold the breath. Ever so slowly through the mouth, sigh it out. And continue to inhale and exhale just like that, or in a way that serves you best. Slow inhales. And even longer and slower exhales. That's it. Just like that. As you continue to inhale and exhale, I want you to bring your awareness to that space between your eyebrows. Notice if you're clenching or if there's tightness, and just soften. We're not squeezing, we're just bringing awareness to that space between our eyebrows. As you continue to inhale and exhale, I want you to imagine yourself on a throne. You're sitting on this throne, and there's steps down below you that lead to a big hallway. And in that hallway, there are two giant doors. And those doors are opening. And coming through those doors is a silhouette. It's just a shadowy figure of a person. And as that silhouette starts to walk towards the building and walking in, standing below you at the steps as you're sitting in this throne of your inner kingdom, you realize that this shadowy silhouette figure is a part of yourself. It starts to become more clear, and you see its eyes. You're looking directly in its eyes as it's looking in your eyes. As you're having this exchange, you can feel its heart as it's feeling your heart. And this silhouette has a message for you. Not overthinking it, just hearing the message it has. And you don't say anything. You just hear it. And the silhouette has another message for you. And this time you just say, thank you. Thank you. And as you say the words thank you, you feel your heart opening. And you look into its eyes. And you see a small tear starting to come down this part's cheek. As this part feels seen, feels witnessed, and it feels heard. And it starts to soften. Because all it was ever really looking for was just to be seen. And you ask this part, what is your name? Once again, not overthinking it, just letting the first name come through, letting it land. You say thank you. You have one final question. What is it that you represent? You hear the answer. And again, you say thank you. You look directly in its eyes as this part of you is looking in your eyes. And you can feel it just as it can feel you. And your heart expands and opens even more as you continue to inhale and exhale. And slowly, this part starts to turn back into a silhouette and starts to drift away out of the hallway beyond the big doors. And it leaves and the doors close and you're left with this feeling. You're left with this stillness, this inner knowing of peace and calm. And you just met one part of yourself. You now have a name for it. You know what it represents. And you know when this feeling comes up, you can speak to this part without saying anything other than thank you or asking it a question. It's that simple. Through your nose, inhale all the way up, sipping in a bit more at the top. Through the mouth, side out. Letting your breath return to its natural state and rhythm, and just flickering your eyes back open in your own time. Welcome back. You just met a part of yourself. This is parts work. And again, anything that you may be feeling right now, maybe you have some tears that came through, I invite you to feel it. That's what this is all about. Feeling, acceptance, surrender. That's what this fourth step is about. Because before we get into positivity and habit change and making these great shifts in our life, it's imperative that we accept these energies that are within us. And if you want to go deeper on parts work, I encourage you to re-listen to this video, do it again to find a new part and or go back to the book and the journaling prompts. Please know that this is my variation of parts work. It's a little bit different than traditional parts work. And I find that by visualizing myself in a throne, imagine that you're the queen or king of your inner queendom or kingdom, and that these parts are almost like the village people coming in to voice a grievance. Rather than getting into rebuttal with them, we're simply just holding space so that they can feel seen, witnessed, and heard. And when we do this, those parts start to soften. The mental chatter starts to soften. We now understand when we feel a certain way, when we have that trigger, which of these parts it is. And we can just drop into a few minutes of this visualization or whatever you need to just soften and let that part move on so that we can come back to our natural state, which is peace. And that's what the 6-step breath process is all about. In the next video, we will kick off the final phase, which is thinking intentionally. This is when we get into positive affirmations, habit change, and everything else. I hope you enjoyed this video and this exercise. If you have comments or questions, feel free to leave a comment with this video on YouTube, or just find my email in the description with this video and send me an email. Know that this is just like a taste of the parts work visualization. I have other versions of this that go so much deeper. So if you want to go deeper on this sort of exploration, feel free to reach out to me. And if you don't have a copy of Overcome the Overwhelm, or you want to share the book because you're getting so much out of it, you can find the link for the book in the description with this video. And if you're enjoying these videos and you want to check out the other videos on the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Sending all my love, and I will see you in the next video, video number 5 for step 5 of this 6-step video series on the Spirituality Simplified YouTube channel. Thanks so much.